Hey, it's Melissa from Kiwi Banana, and today I want to talk about what is university life like in New Zealand. This video is mostly focusing on those that have not lived in New Zealand before, so I'm going to chuck in some university orientated things to think about in there, and then maybe a couple of kind of just general Kiwi lifestyle things that you may want to know about. So I personally have lived in New Zealand for most of my life, and I studied at what they call a polytechnic for 2 years to get 2 diplomas, and then I studied at a university for 5 years to get 2 degrees. I studied at the University of Canterbury, which is in the city of Christchurch, and that is nicknamed the Garden City. Just have to go check it out to see whether that actually rings true or not for you. So, I want to get started. So Kiwis, to describe them, they are generally friendly, laid back, and humble people. Now this doesn't mean that is true for absolutely all Kiwis. That's just a general over kind of generalisation, shall I say, of what they usually are. Now each university has scholarships, and the international fees are usually about 3 times more than the domestic fees. I live in Australia now, and if I'm to compare tertiary domestic fees for Australia and New Zealand, there is quite a big difference. But also that is also in relation to like probably the university rankings. So that is obviously something that often gets accounted for as to how much it's going to cost. Not always, doesn't always correlate, but sometimes. Now student visas, they often, not always, but you want to obviously do your own research on this. They may allow you to work at up to a maximum amount of hours per week, which can help you obviously with sustaining your life here in New Zealand. Now the cost of living is going to vary a lot depending on where you live in New Zealand as well, and the quality of housing in New Zealand. This is one of the main reasons why I actually left New Zealand. I would say it's below par when it comes to putting on the level of a developed state. It's not uncommon for you to probably wear all of your clothes in the cooler months of somewhere like Dunedin due to the lack of proper insulation in a home, and then trying to heat up the home when it's not insulated. Energy is not very cheap in New Zealand, so yeah, and then not having a properly insulated home doesn't really help. It's not that bad. Well, it could be worse, is what I could say. Now, having access to a vehicle is going to be rather handy if you are not living in a city. Sport and outdoor adventure activities are talked about quite a lot within a lot of parts of New Zealand, so it's not uncommon to often someone's talking about some kind of sporting event or a mountain bike expedition that they did on the weekend. And if you're into sport and outdoor adventure activities, then like get involved with it all. And if you're not, find something else that you like doing in nature, because, or maybe New Zealand's not the place for you. Just saying. So often people will ask, how are you doing, with the expectation of you to say, I'm good, thank you, how are you? And it's more like just a way to say hello and open up kind of a conversation with you. I mean, if someone was to then say to you, no, actually, how are you doing, then they will probably want an actual genuine reply. But usually they just expect a good thank you, how are you, and then you can follow on with whatever you need to talk about. Especially when it's a transactional space, when you're communicating with someone, it's at a shop or whatnot. Now, people in towns in more rural parts of New Zealand often will smile and be really open to talk to you outside their normal sort of transactional style of communication. It's not a blanket rule, and that's not to say that you need to talk to everyone. Like if it feels unsafe, you don't have to speak to everyone, but if you feel good about this interaction, or someone smiling at you, smile back and be open to chat to them. It's generally not trying to do you any harm, but obviously I'm not encouraging you to get yourself in dangerous situations either. Not that New Zealand is generally dangerous, just putting it out there. Just trying to cover my ass with that. Now, the university hours for lectures are not too bad. So for a standard kind of full-time course, it may be usually about 15 hours a week. However, you will need to do more study outside of that within your own time to be able to get a better understanding of the concepts of what you'll need to learn to be able to pass your exams and to actually be able to fully use that information that you've been given. Now, people are usually happy to help you with your study in exchange for like you helping them with the study, or maybe you buy them a meal, or you get them a gift, or maybe you record some lecture notes for them while if they can't make it to a class. So having something like a dictaphone or something, depending, some lecturers don't like you doing it, some might be open to it. So yeah, people are usually happy to help. Other students are usually happy to help if there's kind of like a mutual exchange of that as well. And you are allowed to question, somewhat challenge, I say that cautionary though, with your teachers and your lecturers. Like original thoughts are somewhat encouraged in a classroom, in a lecture room. So don't be so closed off to that. If you've got something that you don't really know if that's right, or you want to add another perspective to it, depending on the situation, it's often encouraged. Also, when we're on that note, try not to ask any more than 5 questions every single class. The students will probably get rather annoyed with the flow of the class being disrupted that much just by one person. So if you've got quite a lot of questions, or you really can't get your head around something, speak with the lecturer or the tutor after the class, or if it's not really the time to do that, then make a time to go and visit them and to go over what it is that you need to get your head around. Now, most universities have care places there where students can go to talk about anything that is coming up for them. It could be, it could be study related, but if there's something going on with your relationships with your friends or your family or with yourself, or there's other sort of health issues, anything, there's usually places that you can go and you can speak to someone. Like I know for some of you, this could be like your first time leaving your country, or first time being away from home. And that can be, for a lot of people, a really big thing. And, you want to be able to access the support when you need it. And it's usually there, which is great. Now, also, on a fun note, most universities have a lot of clubs, and they will be clubs for all kinds of interests. So whatever kind of interests you have, there's usually going to be a club for it, and there'll be other students that you can partake in that interest with. If there isn't a club for what it is that you're interested in, you can also start one. It doesn't normally cost a lot of money. It's sometimes it costs nothing really. And if a couple of you and your couple of mates who've got this thing that you really like doing, and there's not a club for it, start it. Could be just you and your mates that get together and do this activity, or there could be other people that come and join as well. So you get in amongst some of the social life, if that's what you need. It often is what we need. We, even if we are super introverted, we do need a little bit of social interaction. It's actually really helpful for us sometimes, even if it might feel a little bit challenging. But yeah, try and get out of your bubble a bit. Also, you can live in a number of different situations, which is also going to help your social life. So you can live in like a homestay. You could live in a hall of residence, or you can even rent a whole house with some mates. Now, for some people, renting a whole house with some mates when you've only just arrived in the country can be quite hard, because you may not even have any friends. For me, when I moved out of home, I moved in with a whole bunch of strangers. And the way it was set up, I just needed to rent a room, and it wasn't even a university accommodation, and that's a whole other video for another day. But I also understand for a lot of people that's a really big thing. So yeah, you might want to look at more of the homestay or the hall of residence first. The hall of residence can be there's different prices and different options available for you. So just look into them and see what it is that you need, and go from there. Now, also, just to touch on, because I feel like it's important, learn as much as you can about Māori culture from Māori people, or people that are deeply connected with Māori people and Māori culture. I feel like you probably get a much more real representation and perspective of what the culture is like, and what what it actually means as well. So yeah, some people, not everybody knows how to speak te reo Māori, and not everybody remembers or knows a lot of the stories. So, you know, if you can become in community with, yeah, I guess I can say that. If you get connected to Māori people and people that know them really well, that's a great way to learn more about that, and just be really open, but also be really respectful. Don't try and state your opinion on anything. Just you know, some curious questions. You know, some questions could be disrespectful, so you just want to be kind of gentle and just show your interest. Like maybe you want to learn a practice. It might be you want to learn how to weave mats or something, like something that they consider to be part of their tradition and part of their culture. You know, there could be little community events on where you might get to learn some of that sort of stuff. You may even get the opportunity to visit a marae, which is like a meeting place for Māori people of that area as well. You know, it's not always going to be an open arm experience as well, because that's understandable as to the history of what's happened, and you know, their story is slightly different to those that are here in Australia, and the First Peoples here in Australia. Yeah, I see a really big difference in the stories and of, you know, when people came here within the last couple of hundred years. But yeah, from my experience, when I was in New Zealand, we learned a lot about, like, we didn't learn a lot, should I say, but I felt like we covered some basics in regards to language and some stories through school. And there's also opportunities for you to study it further as well, even at a university level. And you know, if that's something you're interested in, then definitely look into it some more. Right, now on somewhat of maybe a lighter note, when someone says to you, yeah, nah, or yeah, nah, yeah, or nah, yeah, nah, that generally is just a way of saying, just recording a video, generally just a way of saying kind of, like they're not really trying to give you like a yes or a no answer. It's like, yeah, nah, like it's not really that important. So yeah, that's basically it. That's my rundown of some things that you may want to know. Let me know if you have experienced any of those things, or you're thinking of doing that, going to New Zealand and studying at university. Leave that in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next video.